Hello and welcome to our tutorial. So in this tutorial we're going to look at a little bit at Photoshop, just some basic things in Photoshop. So I've just opened it here and I have all the previous images I've been working on. So I'm just going to hit open and select the image I want to work on and hit open here. And this is sort of the generic sort of setup in Photoshop. So we've got all of our tools here at the side, our image in the middle, and layers and other tools over here. So at the moment this layer is locked, so I'm going to double click on it and I'm going to hit OK, and then the lock that was there is gone, so I can now manipulate this this layer here. So the first thing we're going to do is going to do a little crop. So the model here is kind of lost in space. I suppose the first thing to say is if there's something fundamentally flawed in the image, like this is slightly soft, I can't really fix. Like if the image is out of focus, I can't bring it into focus. There are one or two minor exceptions to that. If we're working with raw files, we might be able to have some focus information, but generally speaking, if it's totally wrong, I can't fix it. So we're only going to do some small kind of tweaking work here. So first thing I'm going to do is select this icon here, which is a box selection tool, and then with my left mouse button I'm just going to draw a box around the model. Now I'm going to leave more room on this side than I have over here, so there's a little bit of room for her to look into. I've kind of cropped off a little bit of her shoulders, but we're still keeping in most of this sort of golden piece here, and we're leaving a tiny little bit of headroom on the top. So to get rid of all of the other information, we go Image, Crop, and now we've made our image smaller. Now we want to replace the background. So let's have a look at how we would do that. So first of all, let's get rid of this selection, the box selection. So we'll go Select, Deselect. And there's a number of ways of selecting the background. Now this is quite a uniform color, so we're just going to use what's called a magic wand. So this is so we could use these tools here, or we could use a quick selection tool, but we have this one here called magic wand. And I'm just going to click here, and you can see it's automatically selected all of this background color. Now you see here is the number 32 is the tolerance, so we could, if it was selecting too much or too little, we could kind of tweak that a little bit, or again we could go back manually and use a different tool, but that's for what we're doing today. That's fine. So to get rid of this background now, I'm just going to press the backspace on the keyboard, and now what we have is these kind of gray and white squares, which basically are transparent or see-through. So we can put in our own background now. So again, I'm going to go Select and then Deselect. So I want to put in a new layer. So I'm going to go Layer, New, Layer. And it's going to say what sort of layer do I want, and we'll call this BG for background and hit OK. And our background layer has been added in here. Now the layer's on top, so we'll color it in first of all and then worry about repositioning it. So I'm going to click on this Paint Bucket tool, and then, which is what you'd see in Microsoft Paint or a simpler program, and then I've got a color. So by default it's white, so I can click on that box and select any color I want. So for now we'll just leave it at white, and then I'm going to click the Paint Bucket tool anywhere on the picture, and we've filled in our background as white, but obviously our background is covering everything, so we need to pick up this layer by left clicking on it and dragging it down until we can see this kind of bluish line, and then let go, and now that white is now in the background. So let's just turn it off, turn it on, so we can see the layer working. So now we're going to do a tiny little bit of color correction here on the face. So I'm going to select the face layer, and before I do that I'm going to duplicate the layer so we can quickly see what the original looks like and what the new version looks like. So I'm going to right click on this layer and go up to Duplicate Layer, and we'll call this CC for color correction. So now you can see we've got two layers here. We've got our new one and then our original one, and we can turn the layers on and off. So I'm going to leave my top layer selected and turned on, and I'm going to just tweak the colors in a little bit using a tool that's ready for us in Photoshop. So first of all we're going to go Image, Adjustment, and we're going to go to Exposure, so how bright and dark the image is, and see if we can do a little bit of work here. So if I increase the exposure, the image is going to get brighter. So we can do that just a little bit and make the image pop a little bit more. Gamma correction is like sort of a contrast control. It's not quite contrast, but it can have that effect. But we're going to leave that as it was. So we'll put that back to 1. Now, so we've increased the exposure a tiny bit. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go Image, Adjustment, and Curves. Now, this is kind of an unusual tool, but this top right hand corner is white and the bottom left hand corner is black. So if I were to lift this up here, all of the black information would suddenly become grey and I could turn it all into white. So we don't want to do that. And I can similarly take all of the white information and bring it down and make it black. But what we can do with this is we can sort of shorten our contrast range. So I can click here, left click, and then lift this up a little bit. And then do the opposite down here, left click and bring this down a little bit. And we're sort of sharpening our contrast range. We don't want to go too extreme. So we're making the dark parts a bit darker and the bright parts a little bit brighter. And then we go OK. And then finally we're going to zoom in a little bit. That's zooming out, so I have to make sure I'm on plus up here. So zoom in. And we can see the image is a little bit soft, and I can't really fix that with this picture here. But what we're going to do is we're just going to lift the eyes a little bit. So there are a few tools that we can play with. So this tool here is a smudge tool, but we've got a blur tool, and we've got a sponge, and where's my... yeah, so let's just try and get, we'll make a little selection around sort of the eye area and try and lift the green here a little bit. So let's see if I can find, I'm actually looking for, there's a few ways to do this. We can use sort of dodge and burn, which are just to make things brighter and darker. But what we'll do here is we'll just make a selection. So we'll use this ellipse marquee tool. We're just going to draw around this area here. And up here where it says feather, we'll put in a value of 30. So it's not a really sharp line. And then what we can do inside of this is we can play with some of the images. So I'm going to go Adjustments, and I'm going to go to Color Balance. And here we can tweak the colors a little bit, and we can get extreme sort of examples, and you can see how if I wanted to refine this I could just select an eye on its own, but if I wanted to punch out the colors or change them a little bit, we have definitely the facilities to do that. Now obviously this selection has gone across the bridge of the nose, so if I go select and deselect, we can see that that has taken effect over the whole eye. So we can go undo and also step backwards and step backwards. So let's do that again, only do a single eye. So we can take this area here, we can go Image, Adjustments, Color Balance, and we can push our colors a little bit and then go OK. Then we can do the same over here. Maybe make it a slightly bigger selection. We can go Image, Adjustments, Color Balance. Push out the color a bit. So these are just to show you some of the possibilities available to us when we use Photoshop. And we'll be using it plenty over the next few weeks. So I'm just going to show you. That's the original, and that's the photo as tweaked a little bit to make it look a bit punchier and sharper. Okay, we'll leave it there for now.